Hey folks, the Old Biker Dude Show is an Old Biker Dude feature film presentation. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Old Biker Dude Show, Home Edition, where we cook things right here at home in the kitchen when we're not out riding our motorcycle around all over the place, being an old podunk grandpa that likes to showcase motorcycle adventure, travel, fishing, and cooking, a little camping, But hey, recently, and you probably heard me mention it in some of my videos, I've been, really trying to eat a lot healthier. And because, I do a lot of cooking, and I have gotten a lot of messages from you folks, in comments and things, especially, there's been some guys out there that don't do a whole lot of cooking, but they seem interested in kind of learning. I've had some emails where I go back and forth with people, and I'm really happy to see that stuff, man. Bring the comments. I answer every comment and every email I receive. I may not get to it today, but I will get to it. What we're going to do tonight is, this is an old family favorite. Kids love it. It's about as old and American and traditional as apple pie and baseball. But this is one pot spaghetti, but only it's going to be the healthy version. I'm using whole grain spaghetti. I'm going to be putting a lot of vegetables in it. This is basically a garden variety with bell peppers, onions, mushrooms. I got carrots, celery. So it's basically garden variety with meat sauce, and we're going to chop up tomatoes from out of our garden. So come on, here we go. We're going to make one pot whole grain spaghetti, garden variety style with meat sauce, here on the Old Biker Dude Show. Let's go. Now folks, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, this is probably going to be the healthiest recipe of spaghetti you've ever seen made. I use things like, 100% grass-fed. This is 93% lean, 7% fat, market side organic ground beef. So here's all my vegetables. I got carrots, onions, mushrooms, celery, red bell peppers, and orange bell peppers going in this. And I'm going to have a whole bunch of these. I don't have them all done yet. Grape tomatoes all chopped up. This is a very low sodium, almost no sodium, and virtually sugar-free meal that's good for people with diabetes. It's not going to spike your sugar. There's a very low glycemic index in this meal. Hardly anything here has a glycemic index rating of any more than about 10, if it's even that. So this is a very healthy meal. And by the time we're done, now of course I'm using this whole grain spaghetti, which is a very healthy version, and it's high in fiber, as you can see, with no cholesterol, no sodium, and only 39 grams carbohydrates. So with the high fiber rating and staying away from the salt, we're going to be able to make a very, very sensible, healthy one-pot spaghetti meal here. Now, for those of you that would like to try this, just follow along. And if you just follow the instructions here, I'm going to show you, you'll be able to make this, and it is good. And like I said, this is one-pot spaghetti. I'm using this pan to do my ingredients one at a time, and then I'll be swapping it all over to my pot, which you can hear over there in the corner. The first thing I'm going to do is use a little bit of unsalted butter to add to my avocado oil that's already in the pan heating up here. I always use high temperature oils like avocado oil, coconut oil, and things like that. A lot of people tend to use olive oil when they're making things that are Italian based. You don't want to heat with olive oil. If you go online and look it up, you'll find where olive oil turns into something completely different once you get it in high heat. It takes all the omega-3 fatty acids that are good for you, like when you eat it on salad or something, and turns it into something a little bit more like omega-6, which is fattening and can create cholesterol in your blood veins. So that's not good. It's always better to use avocado oil or coconut oil and not olive oil when stir frying your vegetables for this. And there I got about a tablespoon of the unsalted butter, maybe a tablespoon and a half. I'm going to do my vegetables 1 and 2 at a time, starting with my harder, like celery, so that I get them all translucent and soft before I transfer them to the catch pot. We're going to start out with our celery. Red bell pepper. And the orange bell pepper. Which I'm putting a lot in it because we're real fond of orange bell peppers in our spaghetti recipe here. Once I've got the veggies in the pan, I'm going to put a nice, pretty thick layer of oregano over the top of it here, so the veggies trap that oregano flavor in there. We're not going to be using any salt. Everything we're doing is sodium free in this, so we're depending on our spices, our garlic, onion powder, chili powder, and our tomato sauce stuff to get us our flavor. After the veggies have been in there for just a few minutes with the top on it, you see the moisture already building up in the top of the pan here. That's good. And what I do is I just take and put that right back in there and stir these around. I'm going to do this about 3 or 4 times until I'm pretty satisfied that they are getting soft ahead of everything else. And then I'm going to add my mushrooms, carrots, and onions. And put the top back on. Now here you'll see I've got my catch pot back here, and it's just sitting on like low, but getting nice and warm. And one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle a bunch of Italian seasoning into the pot so it can just kind of like be warming up. And now I admit that's a pretty good bit, probably 2 tablespoons or so. But like I said, we're not using any salt, so we're going to gain our flavors from our spices. Now all our vegetables are getting nice and soft after about 4 or 5 minutes, and I just keep moving them around to disperse the heat. I've got the heat on just about medium. Of course, I've got an electric stove here, which I wish was gas, but you know, we work with what we have here. But once I get this all nice and soft, I'm going to add about 3 cups of chicken broth to this, so I get a nice final stage of softening these vegetables, and I also get the flavor to mix with the broth. Now our total amount of liquid that we're going to add is going to be 4 cups. There's one, and that one's empty. So move on to container number 2, and we're going to get 2, 3, and some, but I'm going to make water do the rest of it. And there we go. Now for us, we kind of like ours a little spicy, so that dark red pepper you see right there that's chopped up, that came out of our garden. A little bit of a spicy pepper. As I'm returning this to a boil, I add just a little bit of basil. And I'm going to chop up some black pepper. Now I add about a tablespoon of paprika or so, maybe just a little more. Something that we like in everything is turmeric. It's very healthy. This is certified organic. So we're going to add a little bit of that in there. It's also going to help color our sauce real nice too. Now we're going to add 1 6-ounce can of organic tomato paste. And then I'm going to add my little chopped up grape tomatoes. And 2 big heaping teaspoons of minced garlic. You can chop it up fresh or use it right out of the jar. And I'm going to add 2 bay leaves. And a little shake of chili powder. Just enough to give it a little deep color. And then I got a can of Rotel diced tomatoes with little green chilies. And we're going to pop those in there. And when it returns to a boil and has been stirred well, it should look something about like this, with all kinds of chunky garden vegetables. That's why I call it garden variety. And we're going to transfer this over to the catch pot sitting over there. Now I'm going to add some avocado oil right back in, because the meat that I'm cooking is 93% and 7% fat, as I told you before. And yes, I did just add that right into the pan that I had just poured my vegetable combination out of. That way I use my beef just like a mop to get up all that liquid and flavor and brown it all together. And then of course I'm just going to bring this to where it's brown, and I'll add it to the catch pot. And if you want, you're like us, you can add a little garlic powder also. I like putting that directly on the meat. Now of course, if you're one that can have salt in there, you're certainly welcome to add salt, but my recipe is low/no sodium. And then here's the rest of my tomato sauce sitting right back there, ready to be integrated with the meat. It's got a nice thick, the vegetables are nice and soft, and they're just going to sit there and just barely simmer in what I call blurt blurt mode. Now, if I was making spaghetti and meatballs, just as my sauce begins to kind of barely simmer, this is when I would add my meatballs. After braising the outside of the meatballs in oil, I would then add them to the sauce right now. Now, just as I've reached my brown with this, I'm going to make sure I've got everything chopped up pretty good. And then just add it all right here into my sauce pot. Man, if my wife sees this stove, she'll have a cow. Now there's our wonderful sauce back there. It's got a really beautiful color. It's thick with meat and vegetables. This is going to really be good, y'all. But what we're going to do now is we're going to break up our whole grain spaghetti and add that to the pot. And what I do is I add it in like this, and then I change directions. I put it in layers, changing directions, so hopefully it won't clump up so much. And while that looks like that right there, now I'm going to put the top on it in a minute, and it's going to make all that nice and soft. I will press some of this down in here, but I'm not going to break up my spaghetti worrying about it. And I'm going to simmer it for 20 minutes. Now as it continues to simmer, you see how the spaghetti has sort of sunk down in there, and I mixed it around a little bit too. And I'm going to turn my heat down to like between low and simmer, so that it just slowly simmers for, like I said, 20 minutes. But I'm going to keep my top on it so I know my spaghetti gets nice and tender. Here's right at about the 10-minute point. And if you notice, the liquid has been absorbed by our whole grain pasta. And what I do is I just go through here and search for any clumps of it that look like they're trying to stick together. And I use this spaghetti server to just sort of separate them, and then turn things over, get everything all nice and mixed up. This is looking really good, and it's not real thin, so you're not going to have a bunch of runny, watery looking sauce running around the outside edge of your plate when you eat this. This is going to be thick and delicious. And remember, you're eating a low carb, almost no sodium, delicious, healthy meal when you make this. But pretty much just a few more minutes. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to turn that down and let the eye that's cooling down just continue to heat it. What's left of liquid is still simmering right back there in the corner, but it's almost all absorbed, and that's exactly what you want to see. So, okay, we're going to get the chef a little share of this out of here. So I certainly can't feed anything to my family that I would not eat, so it's got to be tested, and that's what I'm going to do now. Of course, we're going to shake a little Parmesan and Romano cheese on here. There we go. And take a test of it. Oh man, that is so good, y'all. And as for the people that go, I don't like whole grain noodles, feed them this, they'll never know the difference. There you have it. Old Biker Dude's version of really, really healthy whole grain spaghetti, garden variety style with meat sauce.